Hello, welcome to Global Eye. I'm Parikshit Luthra. United States President Donald Trump continues his rhetoric against India. This time, he has taken a jibe at the troika of Prime Minister Modi, Russian President Putin and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, who met at the SCO summit last weekend. Here's what US President Trump posted on Truth Social. Looks like we've lost India and Russia to the deepest and darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. End of quote. President Trump's post was accompanied with a photo of Prime Minister Modi, Russian President Putin and Chinese President Xi from the summit in Tianjin, where they were sharing a lighter moment. Remember, the trip to Tianjin was Prime Minister Modi's first China trip in 7 years and amidst the tariff standoff with the US. The three leaders were seen exchanging smiles and even holding hands at the summit. That's not all. Putin even offered a lift to Prime Minister Modi in his Russian-made Urus limousine when the two leaders were headed towards the bilateral meeting. The trip to reach the venue for their meeting lasted about 15 minutes, but they spent another 45 minutes in the car to continue their conversation. Remember, Russia has been one of India's long-standing allies since independence. Beijing and New Delhi's ties had reached a new low post the 2020 Galwan clashes. Two top Union Cabinet Ministers, Finance Minister Sitharaman and Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, have spoken on the standoff between India and the US.
Another question about, the officials of the Trump administration have been using really hurtful language against India. Saying that we are Brahmins profiteering at the expense of, ordinary Indians, or, calling the Ukraine-Russia war Modi's war, or us as Kremlin's laundromat. How do you see all this? I mean, how do you react to something like this?
Very much the same principle as I said earlier. It is one thing, it can be hurtful. It is one thing for a foreign government, head of state or an official or anybody to say all that. And the global diplomatic world is astonished that that kind of an expression is being used against India. And that will have people in the diplomatic arena to respond or to deal with. But what hurts me more is when those very expressions are being justified in India.
So is there a sense in the government that this could be a slightly longer haul?
We hope not, but we really can't leave our exporters high and dry saying it's going to change sooner. We will work with them.
Nirmaji, will we also continue to buy Russian oil?
Yes, that's been made very plain and simple. Whether it is Russian oil or anything else, it's our decision to buy from the place which suits our needs.
Some of the officials of the Trump administration, calling it Modi's war or, a laundromat of Kremlin. I mean, how do you react to this? I mean, are conciliatory noises coming from the other side now?
I think there could be either some misunderstandings or some personal opinions that may be reflected in that. I do not think that deters the US and India from continuing to maintain our strategic alliance and partnership. Our friendship is far stronger than a few comments that may be made by a few people.
And Randeep Jaiswal, spokesperson at the Ministry of External Affairs, refused to comment when asked about President Trump's latest comment on India, Russia and China. But when asked about Trump's trade advisor Navarro's comments alleging Brahmins benefited from Russian oil, MEA spokesperson termed the comments inaccurate and rejected them.
अभी कुछ ही मिनट पहले अमेरिकी राष्ट्रपति डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का एक ट्वीट आया है, एक पोस्ट उन्होंने किया है सोशल मीडिया पर. उन्होंने लिखा है कि looks like we have lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. President Donald J. Trump. इस पर आपकी पहली प्रतिक्रिया.
Okay. Regarding the post, I have no comments to offer on this post at this point. पीटर नवारो के कमेंट के बारे में हम लोगों ने कुछ गलत और गुमराह करने वाले कमेंट या स्टेटमेंट श्री नवारो की तरफ से देखा है और साथ ही साथ हम ये कहना चाहते हैं कि ये हमारे लिए अस्वीकारनीय है, इसको हम अस्वीकार करते हैं.
To take this forward, we are now joined by Arun Kumar Singh, former Indian ambassador to the US, Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Shashank, former foreign secretary, and Raymond Vickery, senior associate at CSIS. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Raymond Vickery, how do you see this statement coming from Donald Trump? Is this a jibe at India, or is this his understanding of the present situation? This is how the White House really sees it. Are you seeing maybe a softening of stand against India over the last few days?
Well, thanks very much for having me. You know, in order to wage peace like war, you have to have a strategy and you have to have partners. Unfortunately, President Donald Trump does not have either of those in mind. He is a transactional person coming from a real estate background, and everything is a transaction in which there are winners and losers. So for him, it's all right to take some sort of extreme statement in hopes that that will disorient the other person that you're dealing with and you'll come out on the other end. On the other hand, I fear that this is really a reflection of President Trump's deepest views about international matters, that there is some sort of fortress America which has its own domain and does not need the rest of the world. I think that's a very unfortunate statement. There are many, many ties between the U.S. and India, going from democratic values enshrined in our constitutions to people. Indian Americans are very prominent in positions in the United States, to strategic interests vis-a-vis China. And those are strong ties, and we hope that there will be people with calmer, saner heads on both sides who will see that and not allow this my way or the highway approach of President Trump to be the last word. On the other hand, It seems to me that there must be evaluation in India. Many in India, or some in India, have said, well, we don't need the rest of the world. They reflect the Donald Trump view only its fortress India. And that's not going to get us to peace and prosperity either. So it's a time for reflection and going forward in that mode.
All right. Let me get in Ambassador Shashank at this point. Ambassador Shashank, how do you see the statements coming from Donald Trump over the last few days? He's been posting on Truth Social almost on a daily basis since the SCO summit. Clearly, the pictures coming from there are playing on his mind. What possible reaction could we see from the White House when it comes to India in the coming days?
Well, there are a couple of points I can make. One is that President Trump does not want to talk against China. He has decided that anything against China directly will hurt the American interests. Secondly, with regard to Russia also, he knows that he would not be able to move the opinion of President Putin. So therefore, the easiest target is India. And that becomes even easier when he has business interests in Pakistan. So Pakistanis have become his best advisors. So what else do you expect? But I'm still hopeful that earlier only people like Raymond Vickery or many other experts on international relations were talking about the values shared by India and USA. But now I find that there are some advisors also to President Trump who are talking in a very positive tone about the bilateral relations and not to disturb this relationship in a very long-term manner. But I think there are a few people who are advising President Trump, and they need to be either made to be quiet or be removed. I think that is the important thing for President Trump to decide. But if he really goes with the advice of only the naysayers and Pakistani advisors, then I'm sure that the period would be much longer for India and USA to come back to a positive trend.
All right. Let me now go across to Ambassador Sajjanhar. Ambassador Sajjanhar, in the last few weeks, one thing is very clear. When it comes to even the trading relationship with India, Donald Trump is now viewing it through the Russia-Ukraine lens. Can you help me bring the war to an end? Will you stop buying Russian oil? And any kind of trade deal or understanding is now contingent on that. Everything is revolving around that. But in the context of this, how do you see this statement? Looks like we've lost India and Russia to the deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. Donald J. Trump. He's just posted this on Truth Social a few hours back. It has been said a lot over the last few months that we need to take Donald Trump seriously, but not to heart. But we have to take him seriously. So how do you read these comments? All right. Ambassador Arun Kumar, if I can put that question to you till the time we get Ambassador Sajjanhar back on.
No, thanks, Parikshit. So, it's unfortunate, but there is really no factual basis to what President Trump has put out in the tweets. And if he were not the president of a major country, nobody would have paid attention to it. If a student had written this at a university, I think teacher would have given them a failed grade. Or if one of the policy analysts has said this, I think they would have lost their credibility. Because if you really look at it, Russia and China now have had a close relationship for a long, long time. Many people have pointed out that in February 2022, before the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, when President Putin had made a visit to China, the joint statement that came out at that time had spoken of a no-limits partnership. And then later, when President Xi had visited Russia and he was leaving from there, the open mic caught a conversation of President Xi telling President Putin that changes are coming that we have not seen in 100 years, and we are together driving those changes. So Russia and China, for various geopolitical reasons, have now had a very close relationship for a long, long time. And therefore, to suggest that something new is happening at this time, I think it's just a justification, because there was a narrative creation in the US that there was justification for President Trump to reach out to President Putin and try and generate pressure on Europe, on Ukraine to compromise as a way of breaking Russia away from China, doing what was called the reverse Kissinger, when in 1971, Kissinger had contributed to the process of sharpening the divide between China and the Soviet Union. Now, when that is not seen to be working at this stage, there seems to be no imminent progress on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, despite recent meeting between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska. I think he's trying to shift the attention from that failure to suggest that now there's a sudden deepening of Russia and China partnership. Similarly, as far as India is concerned, clearly the SCO summit and Prime Minister's visit to China was not set after the difficulties arose in the India-US relationship since May, because SCO summits are an annual feature. They're planned well in advance. Schedules of leaders have to be coordinated. Now, of course, the meeting takes place in the context of a certain international atmosphere, but the scheduling of meeting was not related to the challenges in the US-India relationship at the moment. And the fact of some easing of tension between India and China is something that was started since October last year, when the Indian Prime Minister and President Xi met in Kazan, and there's been some progress. But still, you can't rule out that, suddenly there may be some incursion along the LAC, creating new challenges for the India-China relationship. Therefore, to suggest that suddenly a whole new situation has arisen, is just, playing on the optics and emotions of the moment.
All right, let me go across to Ambassador Sajjanhar. Welcome back on Global Eye. Ambassador, right now, the MEA spokesperson has said that we've seen inaccurate and misleading statements by Mr. Peter Navarro and obviously reject them. Now, Peter Navarro has been particularly harsh on India, calling India a laundromat for the Kremlin, saying that we're flipping, oil bought in the black market. We're profiteering from Russian oil. We're supporting Putin's war as well. So some very strong comments, unlike even Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been hard on India, but he's not used that kind of language. Do you think India can literally cut off Peter Navarro from the overall equation, and currently he does not reflect the view of the White House or the US administration?
At the moment, I think he would be reflecting the view of President Trump, if not of the US administration, definitely as far as President Trump is concerned. And I'm sure he couldn't be making all these statements without either express or indirect approval from President Trump. But I think what has also happened is that most of the appointees in the White House and around Mr. Trump, they owe their positions to Mr. Trump. So I think they are looking at what Mr. Trump would like them to say or do. And they are doing exactly that. And, in terms of what they say and how they say, they have huge amount of latitude. But I think we have stated very clearly that if the whole idea, as far as Mr. Trump is concerned, is that Russia should be punished because India should be punished because it's buying oil from Russia and Russia's coffers are being filled. Then, of course, there are so many other contenders for this. As far as China is concerned, as far as EU buying LNG from Russia is concerned. And as Mr. Putin told Mr. Trump in Alaska, that the trade between Russia and the United States had increased by 20% over the last 4 or 5 months since Mr. Trump came to office. So I don't think it is, doing more trade with Russia and giving it more funds to continue the war with the Ukraine. As I think it has been stated often in your program, I think it is some personal pique and, related possibly to the fact that India has declined to support President Trump's nomination for the Nobel. That is what is, it's a personal issue, ego issue, personal pique that is making him do that, because otherwise he would be acting against all the others. As far as Mr. Navarro's statement is concerned, the MEA has rejected it totally, as you have mentioned. I think as far as Mr. Trump's statement today is concerned, I think that's very inaccurate, because India still values its relationship with the United States. We have said this very many times, irrespective of what Mr. Navarro has said or Mr. Scott Bessent has said. We have adopted a very balanced, a very sober, a very measured tone in responding to all these comments. We have not moved to that level. So I think I'm hopeful that going forward in not too distant a future, we'll be able to bring the relationship on track.
All right, we all hope that, but I'll request all our guests to stay with us. We're taking a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Global Eye, and we are analyzing latest statements made by Donald Trump, who has said, looks like we've lost India and Russia to the deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs has not commented on this statement, but let me take this across to our guests. We have our special panel of foreign policy veterans and diplomats right here on CNBC TV 18. Let me go across to Raymond Vickery at this point. Raymond Vickery, do you expect more US pressure on India in the form of additional sanctions after this additional penalty tariff? Or would this be a lowering of temperature that you're expecting?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that India and the U.S. Have a problem here, which is broader than just U.S. pressure on India or the India-U.S. relationship. It is a broad problem of world peace and prosperity. As you may have seen, Donald Trump has moved to rename our Department of Defense the Department of War. This adherence to the great powers each having their own domains is the essence of what happened prior to World War I, which led into World War II. And you throw into that mix the question of nuclear weapons, and you get an extremely difficult and volatile situation. India is a great nation. It is time for India to step forward and provide leadership. One wonders whether or not it's in India's interest to be clubbed so closely with China and Russia. Whether it's in India's interest to really turn a blind eye in regard to what Russia has done in terms of transgressing the values of the UN Charter against the invasion of a neighbor. Now, will there be more pressure?
Right.
This is a tactic of Donald Trump. Forget Peter Navarro. Peter Navarro is a very fringe kind of guy. And he's basically going to do, if Donald Trump tells him to sit down, he's not even going to look for a chair. So I think...
All right. Raymond Vikri, I'll quickly take closing remarks from all our panelists. Ambassador Shashank, your thoughts? You know, we were speaking to S&P guests earlier today, and they said 50% tariffs will not stay beyond the end of 2025. Will Donald Trump come for the Quad Summit?
I think India must keep trying to bring about peace in Asia and the world, and we'll continue our efforts. For that, it is extremely important that we should be considered as credible partners by Russia and China. And also, we need to increase our economic strength. And for that, Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign, Viksit Bharat campaign need to be continued. As regards the US-India relations, I think we need to keep in mind that in USA, we have many friends also. So it is not a question of either or. It's a question of how soon can President Trump change his mind about the value of India-US relations.
All right, let me take closing remarks now from Ambassador Sajjanhar and Ambassador Arun Singh as well. Ambassador Sajjanhar, India has been now making efforts to show that it's concerned about the Russia-Ukraine war. Yesterday, you had the External Affairs Minister speaking to his counterpart in Ukraine. The Prime Minister has spoken to the Ukrainian president almost twice now. He's held conversations with Putin. Is India now showing earnest efforts towards ending the Russia-Ukraine war? Is this our signal to the Trump administration saying that, hey, we are trying, we're doing what we can, let's put the relationship with India and US on track?
No, absolutely. I think India has been speaking about peace and dialogue and diplomacy right from the beginning. Parikshit, you would recall September 22 in Samarkand, that's what the Prime Minister told President Putin. And we have been speaking about that all along. And I think the world or the countries involved recognize it. That's why Mr. Zelensky spoke to Prime Minister Modi just a day before he was to meet Putin. That is why you have President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Council, Andres Costa, speaking to the Prime Minister and requesting him to take a role in bringing peace in that area. So definitely India is trying its very best. India has no role, meaning calling it Modi's war is a total misunderstanding of the situation. The one last comment I would like to make, Parikshit, also is that what Mr. Trump says that India has been lost to China, it is totally misrepresentation of facts. India is standing its own ground. It's not been lost to anyone and will continue to protect its interests, that is to have peace and tranquility on its border and normal relations with China.
All right. Ambassador Arun Singh, anything very quickly? We just have about 20 seconds, sir.
Sure. Just to say that despite all the top-level noise, functional-level cooperation has continued. Recently, the 2+2 intersessional meeting was held. The defense policy dialogue between the two countries was held. And the Youth Abhyas exercise between the armies in Alaska was held. So that is being sustained to provide a ballast amidst this time of turmoil. So I'm sure we'll come out of this situation.
Right. And that's what everyone is saying. Despite trade tensions, the overall strategic partnership remains intact. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the program. That's all we have time for. Goodbye.